Hey YouTube, it's Imara Ifawuyi. Today I decided I was going to put a video together for you all. It's discussing planning a trip to move to Brazil. You know, getting ready to move to Brazil and what that can look like. I decided to do this video because I have in my life lived and moved to Brazil for longer term twice. And so it's something that I do know about. As many of you know, I am a world traveling mama. I've been taking my children, the two of them now, out for 16 years traveling around. I have a 17-year-old, so since she was 1 year old, she has been going around with me, visiting different countries and staying longer term in different locations on the planet. And so one of the favorite and most beloved locations of my life, and one that my children really enjoyed because we just left less than a month ago, about a month ago, is Brazil. So a lot of people, Brazil has a aura of mystery around it. A lot of people, one, because Americans are so used to you know, Spanish and being around the Spanish language. So when we think of Brazil, understanding that they speak Portuguese, it gives it an extra kind of feel of mystery that surrounds and shrouds it, right? And it is a mysterious, and it's a very exotic place. It's very unique. It has a different flavor than the rest of Latin America. And it's an amazing location to go and to live. It's magical, honestly. And so, as you know, Brazil is a gigantic country. It takes up the bulk of South America. There are a lot of regions. There's a lot of areas to explore, to experience, different vibes, different things to catch on to, and you could just ride it out. I mean, it's a place that you could get lost in. It's really my favorite country. I left there. I have my reasons for leaving. I'll get into that later. But basically, right now we're in Costa Rica. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Brazil. So, I mean, one of the biggest things about planning a trip to Brazil as a mother, as someone who's traveling with children, is you have to consider, number one, what region you're interested in. You know, where you want to go. What kind of vibe do you want to experience? So in the south of the country, we're talking about, you know, kind of Rio, or going more into the Sao Paulo state and going down. You know, this is the kind of energy. It's cold weather. It's very kind of Euro-Brazilian. So a lot of, you know, a lot of brown people, but they kind of live on the outskirts. So for instance, the city of Sao Paulo is this gigantic mega city, 14 million people. And unfortunately, they have gentrified it to where the brown people are on the outskirts. They live in a lot of favelas. A lot of favelas surrounding it. So it's kind of interesting and weird in that way, but you will see brown people in that area, but it's certainly more scarce to see us in the city center. And also it's cold. So if you're looking to have, you know, a more warm, tropical experience in Brazil, you know, the south is not going to be the one for you. That's not going to be the region. Then as you move up, it starts to warm up a little bit, and then you get into, you know, the state of Rio de Janeiro, some of the other states that are there more in the center. There's going up into Minas Gerais, some of these areas. And in those areas, you'll get a whole kind of different feel. It's a different energy. We were in Rio about 2.5 months ago, and Rio is amazing. Rio de Janeiro, the city. But it's gully. You need to be out there prepared to be on guard about your personal belongings and about safety. But a lot of brown folk, and I'm not going to say families, because to be honest with you, Brazil is not a area where you'll find a lot of brown families moving from the States to go set up. Not families. It's a lot of single people. But you'll find in Rio that there are a lot of us there. So if you are a single solo traveler, that could be a good place to go and actually connect with a small community of expats as well. And I keep bringing up, you know, us being there, you know, those of us that had come from the north, because at the end of the day, you're going to want some familiarity. You're going to want some at least when you first touch, you know, when you first get there, it's nice to have that community of other people who are experiencing this, you know, amazing culture from the outside, though, looking in, because you are an outsider. Everywhere you go in the world, you're going to be an outsider, no matter how much you want to absorb into the culture. And so it's good to have that community there to be able to tap into. And so Rio, you get that, a little bit of that. And then as you go north, that's when you're going into the more higher tropics. So you're going into the state of Bahia, which is where my family and I resided most of the time we were there. And then I lived in Bahia another year by myself when I was, you know, not a mother yet. Bahia is just magical. It's magical. It's challenging, but beautiful. It's very tropical, very just every kind of Caribbean vibe you want to get, you can kind of get there. They have the city of Salvador, which is a very, it's a city like unlike any you probably will ever go to. It is full of culture. They're very deep into their African culture there. They say their ancestors, you know, were enslaved. They said more slaves came to Brazil than anywhere. And so they're really into it, and they mix the indigenous culture in with a lot of their stuff too, which they look like us too. And so a lot of them did. And so, you know, you're getting lots of culture, street culture, music, dance, capoeira, everything. It's just an absolutely beautiful city. It actually looks beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's on the ocean. I mean, most of the time you're going to be kind of moving around the ocean, you know, around the water when you're there. And it is just absolutely stunning. So that's somewhere that I want to go back with my children and give them more time in Salvador, because it's a very special place to me. But when we were in Bahia this time, we decided to try more of the countryside, not full country. We lived in the country, but we lived outside of a small city by the name of Itacare. And Itacare was very touristic. It had its own magic. It was a magical city. I mean, you're talking about sunsets, river meeting the ocean everywhere. You know, little small quilombos all over the place, and groups of brown people that were there preserving their culture, their African, their indigenous, all of their culture, the foods, the capoeira, the energy, the dance, all the things. I mean, the Afro-Brazilian culture is extremely rich. And so we had a lot of good experiences there, made some friends, made some connections. Certainly it was a little bit more of a place where, as an outsider, it's not that you stood out by the way you look as a brown woman, and you know, as a brown family, you know, because you could blend in regards to how you look. But when they know that you're an outsider, they really do treat you like one. And then so you have that piece, and then also in Brazil there is an energy where there's a lot of opportunistic, you know, crime, which we didn't experience any of in Bahia. We did in Rio, but not in Bahia. But it's a place of opportunity, so you'll see people kind of latch onto you maybe more because they think they can get something out of you. And so I experienced that even more so in Bahia, even though I'm brown, because people just think you're American. That American dollar basically whitens you when you're out there. So these were some of the challenges of being around my folk in Bahia. To be honest with you, I think I was treated better by, you know, others, you know, Euro Brazilians than I was by my own people, to be honest. But I did make some beautiful connections, and then there are some genuinely nice, great, amazing Brazilian people, you know, Bahians, lovely, a lot of them. But, you know, you have to watch yourself. Brazil's a place where you have to watch yourself because you really will be targeted. So, you know, and then when you go even further north, you're going into some really unique. They have San Luis, this reggae island. They got all kinds of stuff where it's just all kinds of roots reggae being, you know, the whole culture is just inundated with roots reggae. So you got that. You got going up into Pernambuco, Olinda, and some of these beautiful, beautiful, unique cultures that are up in the north of Brazil. So, you know, you have a lot of options, and not even to speak of, you know, Chapada de Veadeiros, I think that's how you say it, which is out more going when you're going towards the west of the country in the center, and you're getting extreme beauty, natural beauty, waterfalls, gigantic waterfalls, a hippie culture. So if you're into more just vibing with folks on the land and kind of hippieing around in that way, you're getting that vibe there. So it's a lot of regions. You've got the Amazons. That's a whole nother energy. If you're really into the plant medicines, you might want to go towards the Amazons, even though ayahuasca and the practice of hape and ayahuasca is throughout the country. People do it all over the country. So if that's an interest to you, you might want to just consider, you could go anywhere in Brazil for that. But yeah, so, another issue that I already touched on with Brazil, and another thing to consider when you're planning to move to Brazil is, of course, safety. Safety is really high on the list because Brazil, like I said, a lot of opportunistic crime. When I lived there, when I was a younger woman, it was incredible. I experienced so much opportunistic crime, so much robbery at gunpoint, at different, so it is a real issue, being a woman and particularly being a foreign person in Brazil in terms of crime. And, there has not been heights. That's real. You'll have a lot of people who are just Brazilified. They're just crazy about Brazil, and they don't want anyone to know just how real that is, but it's real. You have to be on your P's and Q's there. And just watch your back. Crime is a real issue. I found this time when I went, the only experience I had with crime was in Rio de Janeiro in the city, because we were in the outskirts of the city too, like in different parts of Rio, which is a state as well. But in the actual city, crime was an issue. So yeah, these are some of the things. In terms of being able to stay in Brazil, we got blessed. I found a way for us to be able to stay longer term, but you really only get 180 days to stay in Brazil for the year, and then you have to leave for 6 months, and then you can come back in. And so that's how that works. Now they have started the new digital Nomad visa that I know some of my friends are doing, and I don't really know anyone that's having success yet. But if you're thinking you want to go to Brazil long term, please make sure that before you come, you get all the requirements and you get all your paperwork organized stateside or wherever you're at in the world first. Because one of the things about Brazil is that it is part of The Hague, and so that means you're going to have a lot of your documents apostilled. You're going to need FBI checks. You're going to need different things. Everything has to be apostilled. It's a lot. And that's something that will be way easier facilitated from stateside than it would be when you get to Brazil and are trying to take care of that. So get your paperwork together if you think you want to apply for that digital nomad visa, okay? And that's my first suggestion. I think the digital nomad visa gives you a year, and then a year, and I think you can renew, something like that. So look into that. That's new. It won't be easy to figure out. Bureaucracy in Brazil is extremely complicated. It doesn't take that long all the time. It can be very hit or miss, but it is very complicated and annoying, and a lot of times you'll be going on the government sites trying to get things done. Site won't be working right, stuff won't be clicking to where it's supposed to. Like, stuff is just, when it comes to taking care of business there, it can be very tricky. Anytime I had to file anything or do anything when I was living there, I had a woman that I worked with in Rio de Janeiro, and I would have her do stuff for me because it was just too much. Even though I speak Portuguese and can read it, mostly fine, it was still just too much to weed through and figure out. And also just navigating those government sites. Like, you have to have a Brazilian mind to figure out how to navigate their website. Sometimes it's really way different than what we're used to in the States. And so that's something to consider. Just being really as prepared as you can. That's, really important. Okay. In terms of things like, if you're a single woman, for instance, and you go out there and you're wanting to date, that can be really, really tricky with Brazil. I haven't attempted to date there. I did when I was a young woman years ago, but I didn't do any of that this time, but from the people I know, because I did know a lot of, single travelers and, people, and it was really hard. Brazilians are very proud. They love their culture. They love their culture. They love themselves. They love each other. And so, to get in with them, you can. Of course, there are couples and Brazilians that are married to foreigners, dating and all that. But a lot of times, because it's kind of a sexually free society, a lot of your interactions in the dating realm, from what I understand, as being currently the truth as well as it was in the past, is, it's going to be men just soliciting you, if you're, if that's what you're into, soliciting you for sex. And it'll be very much all about sex. And so those are some of the things to consider if you're into that kind of lifestyle. Brazil could be okay for you dating wise, but I don't deal with all of that. So that's something to consider. If you come in there and you want to find a man and you're assisting everything, it could happen. You could end up in a relationship, but the energy of the place, it can be very flighty. So the vibe of the culture is, it could, one minute it seem one way and the next minute it just flip on you, switch. And so, you thinking you're getting in with somebody, and then the next time you see them, they might act like they barely, they know you, but it might be just real surface interaction. So it's not really the most, the character and the character of the people and stuff. It can be very flippant. So you have to be prepared for that, and that can really feed into the dating situation, right? And the mating situation, if that's what you're trying to do. So yeah, that is something to consider. And just, whatever it is you want to do, Brazil is an open terrain for you to explore all aspects of yourself, to explore nature, or to explore this, very exotic, unique culture in the Americas. And you just have to keep an open heart and mind. You definitely want to have your Brazilian Portuguese, specifically, on deck. I don't suggest, you can go out there without any language skills. I don't suggest it. One, because a lot of us are used to traveling to places like Costa Rica, where, yes, they're Spanish speakers, but almost everybody speaks English because they're so used to dealing with tourists that they have to have those skill sets. Brazil, foreign tourism is not on the level that it is here in Costa Rica. So, their tourism is, that country is so huge that if you live up north, most of the tourists you see are going to be coming from the south, from the cold regions. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of internal movement in tourism and less of the foreign influence. So while some of them may speak English, particularly, the Euro Brazilians, more of them speak English in the south. But when you go up north, you will have English people who kind of speak English up north. You'll have that. They're there, but not in abundance. Brazil's not a place where there's a lot of English speaking. It's not going to accommodate you in that way. So if you go and the language is not on point, if the language is not there at all, if you don't have any Portuguese background at all, it's going to be challenging. And then a lot of people go and they have some Spanish background. They think that'll kind of work. Kind of. A lot of Brazilians can hear Spanish. They're surrounded by Spanish-speaking countries, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So have that Portuguese on deck. I'm telling you, it helps a lot to navigate there. Other than that, yeah, that's just a small little snippet. I just wanted to share some of those tips with you. I still offer consultations. I haven't been doing it lately, but I used to help people kind of get their plans together, some of the details of planning their trips, particularly to Brazil, different parts of the world. We've lived, in a lot of places, Hawaii and a few countries in the Caribbean, and we've lived in Europe, we've lived in Africa, Central America, Mexico. So, we've done quite a bit of traveling. And so I'm definitely here to support. Definitely into helping people plan for their children, and particularly in the homeschooling piece. And how am I going to, educate my child while I'm traveling abroad, and all the things that come into your mind when you're planning a trip abroad. It could be a good thing. Just get in touch with me. You can email me at Ifawuyi, IFAWUYI, Imara is IMARA. I'll put it down in the description below, at gmail.com. And you can hit me up. Like I said, still doing the blueprints, you know, the moving abroad, the global nomad blueprint for your international escape. Yeah, you know, I was about to wrap up, but I'm like, you know, a lot of us are really needing to have a different experience from the American experience. While, you know, the amenities are there and it's comfortable, and a lot of us just kind of like to keep it to that. It's good to branch out, and it's really amazing to branch out with your family. It's not easy, but it can be an amazing growth for the children to have that experience of having to figure out how to navigate in different terrains, figure out languages in places where they didn't have really the language skills, figure out how to socialize and interact in different places. It makes you more masterful in life because you're able to really get in there and stretch yourself and really make yourself work hard to be able to understand differences. Everything is not like in the States. Everything is not comfortable all the time. It's not always easy. And it's good to come out of your comfort zone sometimes. So I really suggest some kind of travel, even if it's for 3 months at a time. You don't have to go and be moving the way we do, but even if it's for some time to get away with your family and to experience something different, I think it's a really beneficial thing. So yeah, much love to everyone. I'll put the Gmail in the description. Hope you all are having a beautiful Saturday. I know I'm going to. It's beautiful here, lovely space that we're staying in here in the hills of Escazú in Costa Rica, and we're going to be heading up. Just so you all know, I'm going to be bringing some retreats and some kind of tours back online. We're going to be moving up to where all the waterfalls and the hot springs and the deep nature and the volcanic sulfur energy is up north in the La Fortuna area. So, you know, I'll be able to work with more mothers with the doula and the womb wellness work that a lot of you know me from, and be able to, you know, share yoga and movement and expression up there from the mountains. So yeah, all of that's going to be coming back online. I'm excited. So we'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed one.